Now, you probably read the title of the video and thought to yourself, there is no way one social media site conquered and colonized another social media site, and you'd be wrong. The year is 2017. The country known as Tumblr is strong. It has a huge population with over 500,000 citizens. Most who live there are a religious group known as the Tumblrites. The Tumblrite religion includes many holy practices, such as being a wise ass, pretending you're the smartest, and sharing a bunch of unfunny and overused memes. Does that sound familiar? And of course, activism, the practice of sharing your opinions so you can be the most tolerant, attacking and canceling people who disagree with you, romanticizing mental illness, and just acting like 14-year-old liberal white woke girls. Does that sound familiar? But then we get to their biggest and most important cultural pillar, images meant for you to commit self-pleasuring acts. This was a huge ideal, and this is the reason why most people lived there, and everything was great for Tumblr, until one day. In 2018, the government of Tumblr made an executive decision to ban all NSFW self-pleasuring act images as part of their new crackdowns of the war on NSFW images. Of course, this new law banning these images went against the Tumblrites' religious beliefs. Many of their religious leaders, bloggers, were getting jailed and banned for sharing these images. It's like the Pilgrims of England. They fled to other countries to avoid religious persecution. The destination? Reddit and Twitter. The Tumblrites landed at Reddit Rock and Cape of Twitter. Their goal was to conquer and colonize these two sites and convert them to Tumblrism. They started with the Reddit natives. They tried to convert the Reddit natives to Tumblrism peacefully at first by sending missionaries and building missions, but these Redditors refused this new religion. Then the Tumblrites started aggressively pushing their new religious agendas. This would push the Redditors to war. Their first target was the settlement of r/anti-hate, a huge pillar to the Tumblrites. The Redditors decided to launch a full-scale assault with over 50,000 Redditors on the settlement. The Tumblrite pilgrims, who were outnumbered and taken by surprise, well, of course, fell within hours. The Redditors burned this city to the ground and massacred many of the Tumblrites. Within hours, the whole settlement was gone. Many other anti-subreddit towns were made, but, of course, all of them were attacked and pillaged using guerrilla warfare tactics. So the Tumblrites decided to go on an offensive. They went on a huge journey to track down and ban many Redditors from the site by canceling them. Of course, the Redditors would team up and use guerrilla warfare tactics. They would ambush the Tumblrites and, of course, kill them. These Tumblr raids were ultimately a failure. But it was time for Tumblr to go on another offensive. They launched a full-scale attack on Reddit this time, with about 10 million Tumblrites desperately trying to gain a foothold into Reddit, specifically Reddit's meme temples. They launched a full-scale attack on the meme temples. Most of the inhabitants of these meme temples were unarmed citizens. Hundreds of thousands of innocent Redditors were run off their meme lands, murdered, and massacred. The Tumblrites seized control of the meme temples, and therefore most of Reddit, because these were the big settlements. Instead of quality Reddit memes, we now have oversaturated awful memes. These new memes got praise and karma from many people, which converted many old Redditors to a new mishmash version of Tumblrism, a mix of Redditism and Tumblrism called memeism. But there was still one last Reddit stronghold, a town called r/Big Chungus. The last of the Reddit refugees had fled from the Tumblr massacres and set up in this holy town. It was fortified and filled with Redditor fighters and civilians. The Tumblrites needed this town to have full control over Reddit, but taking it would be difficult. They didn't want to take the town using military force. That would take them a long time and cost many lives. So they laid siege to the subreddit. With over 800,000 Tumblrites surrounding the subreddit, as the days turned to weeks and the weeks turned to months, the Redditors and the Big Chungus town still refused to surrender. But it was okay. The Tumblrites came up with a new weapon, the illegal images-nator. They zapped the town with this new awful weapon, and by the way, using this weapon in 2021 is now considered a war crime. But in matters of hours, the innators worked, and just like that, r/Big Chungus was gone. This was probably the saddest internet war of all time. The siege of Chungus became the Chungus Massacre, as over 300,000 Redditors, and just like that, all of Reddit was colonized and conquered. Many of the more radical Redditors were put on reservations where they suffered from famine and disease, while the new Tumblr sympathetic government lived it up in wealth and prosperity.